Is this thing on? Are we live? It looks like the microphone isn't muted for whatever weird reason it muted on the last one. So it looks like we're live. What's happening, everybody? Everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. This is the truck buying diaries, or at least I should say the truck shopping diaries. Because, guys, I got to tell you, this is turning into a circus. So lots of crazy stuff going on around, every manufacturer right now. And really one of the things, the more I research this, and if you're watching this in the far distant future, this is for what I guess would end up being the 2023 model year. It's about the the tail end of July of 22. And, well, got to tell y'all something. It's kind of crazy, just the experience so far. So I just got through uploading a video, basically a standalone video, which I'm going to try to do more of, but it's just one of those things where I do a lot more live shows than I do the standalones. I'm going to kind of invert that a little bit. But so I wanted to chronicle a little bit of the buying, or at least shopping at this point, experience, given all the funkiness that's going on and supply chain problems and interest rates and whatever else you want to throw into the mix. Look, guys, here's the deal. I just got back from an experience, or at least I am still in the afterglow of the experience, if you want to call it that facetiously, of the Chevrolet truck Silverado, looking at a buying, shopping experience. Got to tell you guys, it was hysterical. So if you haven't had a chance to see that standalone video, it's in my thoughts portion of the playlist. I got to tell you, it was absolutely hysterical. And it's not so much that I didn't like the truck. In fact, quite the opposite. I really, 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 really liked the Silverado from a styling point of view. Loved the color of the thing, the interior, all of that. The ride was great. With the, I guess you could call it the absolute lack of power. But even by comparison, lack of power, but even in a vacuum, the truck really didn't run all that great. Not if you've driven any modern vehicles anytime in recent history, I should say, especially any of the Rams. Whether the Ram is pretty interesting, whether you go with a 321 or a 392 gear. I've got another video coming with that where I'm going to go over the numbers and really how each gear fares from a driving point of view. I've driven them both. I think I got a pretty fair assessment of how each one drives, but I've got a bit of a more unique perspective on the driving experience than you may have heard from someone else. So be on the lookout for that video coming soon. But the GM product, the Silverado, the truck itself, just absolutely suffers by comparison when you put it up against the Ram or the Ford. And I got to tell you, of the big three American manufacturers, those are really the only two that you're looking at for the most part. You are probably going to find yourself not really all that into maybe the Nissan or the Toyota, especially if you're an American truck buyer. By the way, where I'm filming is very near Velocito. And so you may hear that every once in a while, guys going out to Velocito to get some hits in. So right off the bat, we got guys heading out. Anyway, point of all this is the Silverado was a dog. And that sucks because to me, the company that makes the Corvette, the company that makes the ZL1 Camaro, the company that makes all these hot rods that you've heard of, you would think that there's some kind of a legacy involved here. I mean, even going back to the 60s, GM had kind of hot rod pickups. In fact, I forget the name that they have, but you could get a big block in a C10. And that would kind of be like getting a 6.2 in any of these half-ton trucks. Well, because GM doesn't have a 400 horsepower offering of any kind, whereas everybody else does. In fact, you can make the argument that 400 horsepower is the cover charge in terms of power plant output for a half-ton truck. GM is falling short of that but you can't option the 6.2 liter in a work truck variant. They try to do this, up branding and upscaling for you with that 6.2 liter that falls short of the 6 cylinders in terms of making torque. So it's kind of funny. The 6 liter makes less torque than the 6 cylinders that are floating around out there, talking about the 3.5 liter variants of the twin turbo aspirated flavor. So when you take all of that into account, what it ends up looking like is a cool, nice looking truck that rides really well, but it's only an option if you are not in any kind of hurry to get anywhere and probably don't want any real towing performance to go along with it. Oh, yeah. And you can't option a different gear ratio with that 5.3, regardless of how hard you cry or how desperately you ask. You're stuck with one gear ratio. I think it's a 323. Either way, it doesn't really matter. The truck feels like a dog with whatever gear is in it. It needs a 373 at least, and it needs a bump in power, or it needs at least a bump in power and a 342 gear option out of that 5.3. I might be a player if they would just bump the thing to a respectable displacement in terms of V8s, bump it to 5.7. It's not like they haven't made 5.7 liter variants of an LS flavor of ice cream at some point, right? Bring it back because, Ram is out there with their 5.7, and of course the Titan is a 5.6. 5.3 just isn't going to cut it, not in this day and age, and you just can't get by on whatever reputation for durability might have. Oh, shit, that's right. Yeah, your DOD stuff sucks even worse than Mopar's did about 4 years ago. So, no reason to buy a GM at this point. And I would love to have a reason to do it. Like I say, I really like the truck. The color of that Silverado that I drove, that service loaner that they gave me like a whole 5 minutes worth of a driving experience. Anyway, the video goes anyway. It's been pretty funny that the Ram dealerships that I've been to are like, yeah, let's go for a drive. Let's check it out. Run the thing. Let's see what it'll do. Ford has done the same thing. Matt the thing, man, let's see what this thing will do. I'd like to know what this thing will do. Good sports about it. Chevrolet, the one that I drove, I literally had about a 5-minute driving experience. And then the brand ambassador has got the cojones to ask me, based on your driving experience, would you be willing to take this one home today? What driving experience? I even told the guys, I haven't even had a chance to warm this thing up yet. And you're asking me about my driving experience? What a freaking maroon. Anyway, I'm just sharing with you guys my experience with all of this. I suffer for you. Actually, the thing is, I kind of had a little bit of fun with this, and it's been a whole lot of fun, really more with the Rams than anything else. Trying to come to grips with which gear I want to get for my truck. Do I get the 392 or do I get the 321? Lots of back and forth spreadsheets and all of that. And the interesting thing about the Ram with the 321 versus the 392, it's not as cut and dry as you would think, guys. It really, really, really isn't. I remember with my older truck, there was a definite yes in terms of getting the 392 gear from an acceleration standpoint and all of that. It's not quite the same answer that I would give for the Ram right now. The 321 gear with the HP 75 transmission, which has a little bit more aggressive first gear, makes that 321 get out of the hole with quite a bit of authority. 321 with a no-slip rear end will light the tires up pretty good in first gear, but it puts the power down better than the 392 does because first gear is more aggressive still. So the 392 acts like a 408 rear gear compared to the older models and their gear ratios. But the 321 acts like a 340 gear. So it's kind of like a split in the middle, if you will, and at least closer to it. But the thing is it can kind of still put the power down while it's hazing the tires. I'm actually grown a lot more fond of the 321. And in the video that I'll put together, I'll have all the spreadsheets. I'll be flipping the computer around and doing all of that. But the funny thing about the 321 gear is that when you take into account tire size and then you take into account maximum RPM of the engine for the 6.2, say it's 6,200 RPM. If you put that figure into my spreadsheet at 6,200 RPM for the 321 gear with the tire size, the mile per hour per gear is identical between a Scat Pack with a 309 gear and the truck with a 321. It's kind of like the truck just shifts earlier. But the idea there is like partial throttle downshifts on the highway, especially, are a lot better with the 321 gear. And they actually kind of make more sense from really any speed. If you're at a steady state and then want to roll into the throttle, it's better all the way around than the 392 at really any speed, again, above 40 miles an hour. So it's kind of interesting when you get into that aspect of it. Okay, well, the 392 gear was a solid upgrade over the 321 from an acceleration standpoint. It's kind of not that way anymore, at least not from the feeling that I got from my butt dyno. And from a roll, I mean, the 321, especially if you want the throttle at 65 miles an hour or 70 miles an hour, especially at 75, that 321 just absolutely drops a couple of gears and flies. So I'm finding myself really gravitating back to the 321 gear for the Ram as opposed to the 392 gear, primarily because, well, kind of ran a little bit better. But if you're putting bigger tires on the thing, yeah, go with the 392 gear. But if you're not, take a 321 gear truck for a spin. Plus, Stormy's going to be a lightweight version of that truck. It'll be the lightest weight version of that truck that you can get. So it's not going to be encumbered by the weight of the vehicles that I've driven up to this point. So the 321 is going to be even that much better with it. So the 392, what I've experienced with that is you roll into the throttle pretty aggressively and it just kind of lights the tires up, which is kind of adorable on one hand, but the 321 gear will kind of do that too. And the 392 gear has a habit of shifting a little bit early, so it ends up falling on its face. 321 truck does not do that at all. So anyway, just kind of giving you guys some updates with that. Again, I'll obviously be boring you guys to tears with data on that 321 gear truck. By the way, speaking of data, the tune on the DTs from the factory, pretty darn solid tune, guys. If you're running 89 octane in that truck, the tune is a lot better than the one that's in the DS. I was able to data log one of those trucks, was able to kind of lean on it pretty good. And I can tell you guys this, impressive how the thing gets down the road on the highway, but more impressive is no short-term knock retard at cruise, nothing at wide open throttle going through the gears. They do go into cat over temp basically that quick, but from just a driving point of view and a driving standpoint, they're really good, which is funny to me because it will allow more timing than the DS tune will, but it doesn't really show up on the read file that I was sent. I don't have the right equipment to do an 18 and up read file, which is fine. I mean, I don't need it. I can get a lot of the information that I need just off of a data log. And no short-term knock retard with 89 octane in the truck. And I can tell you this, sucker pulls pretty strong with 89 octane in the tank. So just saying. Anyway, let me check in with you guys. Chuck's in saying, I'm in. B, good to see you, Chuck. Saying, sorry to pound your emails this week. Do you like the pitch black Hellcat? Yes, I did. Yeah, shoot me some pics of that blemish that you're seeing, though. I didn't see a pic on that. Ardell saying, hey, B, what's up, Ardell? Chuck saying, just window shopping for now. Well, listen, you got a window shop. You got to find out what's out there, brother. So it's all good. It's all good stuff, though. The new cars are good, but they go into cat over temp practically immediately, though. That's one thing you got to look out for. Eric Taylor saying, good evening, Professor B. Got the flex. What's up, brother? Owen saying, good evening, Moparites. I like it. Moparians. Um, let's see. Skids is saying, what up, B? What's up, Devil Horns? Biaga is saying, what up, B? Are you 100% sold into the 356 V6 turbo trucks in every aspect? No, not at all. In fact, here's the thing that just twists my giblets about the 3.5 liter stuff that's out there. You can throw the 2.7 into this too if you want, but here's my take on the EcoBoost variants, Toyota's, whatever they're calling their 3.5 liter, basically that 400, 500 torque thing, 400 horse, 500 torque deal. Everything that I've read and everything that I've tried to catch up with the EcoBoost, the 3.5 liter, because the 2.7 is not even on the table whatsoever to talk about. Everything that I've found on the 3.5 liter leads me to a conclusion that it is a maintenance, it's a high maintenance engine. And even with maintaining it at a high level, you're still going to run into issues with cam phasers and with potential oil consumption. And that's a bit of a problem. And it might be one of these skies falling, but I can tell you this. The general consensus is that they're going to need cam phasers somewhere around 70 to 100,000 miles. That's not an option for me because that's a $3,000 repair. And I don't want to lunch a motor because I don't catch something like that in time if there's something else going on with this thing and it ends up failing. The other thing is that, in my experience, the 3.5 liter twin turbo variants, it doesn't matter which one it is. The problem with that is that, or the problem with that type of an engine is that it is always boost. It is always in some kind of power enriched mode, which is to say that it's always throwing a lot more fuel at that engine just on tipping when you need to get the thing to move. Now, you might say, well, yeah, well, the V8 is going to suck down fuel too. It will, but the V8 will consume less fuel under those power enrichment conditions than a boosted engine will, especially one that is being fed to the tune of 20, 22, 24 pounds of boost. Keeping in mind that the new Dodge Hurricane, which is a 3-liter, which is barely more than the 2.7, is going to be around 24 to 26. I think the high output will even be 28 pounds of boost or something along those lines. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure those aren't exact numbers, but again, these are high boost numbers, and you got to feed those boosts with a lot of fuel. So in other words, in practice, they don't get as good a fuel mileage as you might think. And as a matter of fact, in my experience, they get worse fuel economy in the real world. See, the thing is that you will be told, well, the V6 gets great gas mileage going down the highway and gets all the power you need, or gives you all the power you need when you need it. Well, you can game the system with a V6 in a fuel economy test. You can definitely do that. And the problem that you run into is that you will have an unrealistic number that in the real world just doesn't play. If you want to cruise at 55 miles an hour, where it only takes 20 horsepower, 25 horsepower to move you down the road, that's one thing. But in real world scenarios where you actually are into the throttle and out, in my experience, they don't get as good a fuel economy. And I'm more concerned with having an engine that's always in boost. And I get it. You can engineer anything to work under any conditions. Believe me, nobody understands that as much as I do. But I also understand that there's a whole lot of load. The cylinder pressures in that tiny cylinder are going to be crazy high to make as much power as the cylinder pressures in a kind of a lumbering V8, if you will, call it that. But when you really start pouring the coal to it, those pressures get even higher. And of course, you get with the much, much higher pressures comes potential issues with fuel quality, and the list goes on, where it kind of raises a bit of an eyebrow. So to me, I'm not a V8. I'm not like, it's got to be a V8. No, it's nothing to do with that. I would feel a lot more comfortable with a 3.5-liter twin turbo V6 if we had fuel that would actually be of the quality that you can run in that thing and make reliable power without having to worry about fuel quality. So anyway, probably a little bit, I don't know, overthinking it on my part, but I do that quite a bit. So that, no surprise there. But again, my experience, not very good. The other side of that argument, so taking my experience completely out of it, people that I know with the 3.5 liter stuff, we're talking about the EcoBoost right now, but the Toyota can fall into this too, because it's already showing to have some problems of its own, primarily wastegates and a couple of other things. But the EcoBoost platform has been problematic, to say the least. And of course, you've got 10-speed automatic problems that kind of come along with that. So it's kind of a double-headed dragon here, if you will. I got engine question marks with the 3.5 liter, even though it's a riot to drive and it's fast by any standard whatsoever. In fact, how that engine didn't end up in the Mustang is beyond me. But that car, or that truck is car fast. It's sports car fast with the right trim level. But I have my reservations about that thing living for a long time. And of course, high maintenance. I don't know. The other thing is the transmission. I know they've had some issues, so it's kind of a question mark for me. I'm not convinced they can't get there, but I'm also not convinced that it's the best way. Plus, to me, it's kind of like they're gaming the system a little bit. And listen, you cannot have your cake and eat it. Okay, it's one or the other. And you either want your power, great, but it's going to come at the expense of higher maintenance, potentially higher repair costs or higher maintenance costs with significant repairs included. And that can also come at a convenience cost. And the transmission thing is just enough to push me over the edge on the Fords. Let's see. Bear with me just a second, guys. Hey, Joseph's saying, I've got the 392 in my Ram, fast as hell, drinks a lot of gas. I've got a 33-gallon gas tank. You might need it with that thing. The funny thing about the 392 is, well, I'll get really deep into the difference between the 321 and 392 gear combinations. But what I found with a 392 gear is that going down the highway, let's say you're going 70, okay, 70 or 75, just highway speeds, or you're going 40, 45 miles an hour, whatever the case is, not as pronounced down there, but at like highway speeds or near highway speeds, 65, 75, whatever miles an hour. With the 321, because it's identical to a Scat Pack with a 309 gear in terms of revs per mile per hour, you tip into the throttle a little bit with a 321, it downshifts. When it downshifts, the amount of throttle input you have is commensurate to, if you can think about it, a higher mile per hour in the gear that you downshifted into, even though it's partial. So the truck accelerates, and it accelerates, not like you're flooring it, but it accelerates the way your brain would anticipate it to accelerate at that foot position. The 392 gear is a little bit different because when you tip into the throttle at the same highway speeds or close to highway speeds even, you tip into the throttle, it downshifts. But here's the twist. When the 392 downshifted, it downshifted at a speed that was already kind of at that throttle position in that gear's comfortable speed. In other words, there was nowhere to accelerate because it was already kind of at the speed that it would be at if that truck only had that gear. This is really a weird way to try to describe this. I'm just trying to do this as best I can. So you'd have to roll into the throttle a little bit more, making the 392 feel like it's working harder. Then if you really needed to shower down on it, you'd go watt, and the 392 would feel like it was just running out of legs, where the 321 would just keep marching forward, just steaming forward. So for me, it was just a weird, it may be completely psychological here, but both gears have their pluses. It's just that the 321 seems to have more areas where it does well, with a big exception being at maybe slower speeds, where the 321 you tip into and it's kind of a doldrum portion of the gear, just like the Scat Packs have, where in that area the 392 may have a little bit better acceleration. But if you watt the throttle on the 321 in that level, in that mile per hour range, which were dropped down into second, it just lights the tires up. Bay tries to anyway and takes off. So it's a little bit more violent than the 392 is in that respect. It's a really weird thing. Anyway, I'm going to try to get into that. And I got to think about how I'm going to describe the two different gears, because I am still really torn between the two and cannot make up my mind. The one thing there's a lot that's pushing me towards the 321 though. Lower revs, less RPM per mile, easier on there's a lot of things that are helping me out with, mentally with sorting through and justifying the 321 when I've been swinging from this 392 gear, 392 for the longest time. So, get ready for that one. That one's going to be really, heavy data, oriented. Let's see. Ardell saying, I did not even get to drive the Camaro I was going to buy. The salesman was rude and, it's just really off towards him. I went in to inquire about a new Silverado pickup. And again, same thing, no more GM. And man, guys, I got to tell you something. Because of how rude they were to me and just how off-putting the whole experience was with GM, I don't see myself going into another General Motors dealership for anything anytime soon. X saying, what up, Professor B? Got the flex. Saying, seeing the picture of you in the jet made me think you flying your ass away from these busted dealerships you recently visited. So you nailed it on that. That's why I was like, all clear. So that is a Beechcraft AT6-2, as in II2, not AT62. Texan trainer, and it's a turboprop. And where I'm sitting in the, I'm actually sitting in what would be the trainee's position. But yeah, that's an AT6-2 Texan trainer. Top speed on that's about 3. Depends on the altitude, but it's a 350, 360 mile an hour fixed wing. Cool airplane, fast, small too, a lot smaller than you might think. But check it out. If you look up a Beechcraft AT6-2, you'll see exactly what I was sitting in. Again, neat airplane, kind of a newer variant of an entry-level trainer. Cubby saying, man, that sucks. You had a bad experience. Hope you find a good fit for you. It's coming, man. I hope we'll figure it out eventually. But yeah, X got it right on it. It was like all clear for takeoff. Get me the hell out of this thing. Actually, AT6 in most American aircraft throttles on the left side. Flaps, throttle forward. Check out. X is hanging out with Chuck. Chuck saying, hey, dude. Chuck saying, so the blemish on the supercharger on the Hellcat was just sticky goo from the factory. There's only 300 miles on it. Good deal. That's good. It was saying, hello, King. What's up, Evil? Mr. A. Joe saying, I went to get my oil change today and decided to walk the lot. Everything had a $5,000 added tag. Yeah, that killed every thought that I had for downgrading. So let's talk about that for a minute. So between the added tags and the dealer prep fee, I have been. So I'll put it to you like this. The added tag doesn't play for me. And the reason why it doesn't play for me is that they're calling it a market correction. And you guys have heard me say this before, but if you haven't heard me say this, here's what I'll tell them about that. Listen, it's a market correction, huh? Well, let me remind you that the market only exists through trade. In this case, it is a trade of your vehicle that you have for the money and the financing or whatever it is that I have, plus trade or whatnot. That is the trade that creates the market. Without me, the buyer, there is no market. So marking the car up to try to take advantage of a market shortage or something along those lines, that's not my problem. As a consumer, I don't care what problems you have. I only am concerned with my best interests, not paying because you have interests that need to be met. So hitting me with an add tag is pointless. I won't pay it because without me as a market contributor, that market adjustment is worthless. It's not worth the ink that it was used to be put on a piece of paper. Now, the dealer prep fee is another hysterical one. One of my most favorite aspects of this was we fill your tires with nitrogen. Really? Okay, so the story behind that, the first time somebody ever tried to get over with me on that, I said, first of all, save that for somebody else. But let me ask you this. What percentage of the air that you're walking around, the air that you're breathing, what percentage of that air is nitrogen? On the planet Earth, this planet that we live on, it's 70% nitrogen, 20% oxygen, and about 10% of every other gas or trace element that's out there. So you mean to tell me you want me to spend money for 70% of something that I already get for free? Strange. Also strange as to why I would want to do it to begin with. People have been putting air in their tires for basically forever. Somebody want to tell me what this brand new gas they made up called nitrogen does? No, doesn't play like that either. So had to deal with that. Plus, we throw in paint protection. Paint protection? What the hell kind of paint? Listen, I need the truck to show up, the vehicle, the car, whatever. I need it to show up from the factory. I'll take care of the rest. Don't worry about preparing it, because if there's anything the factory didn't do to that thing to make it roadworthy and to make it, I don't know, a complete motorized vehicle, it wouldn't have passed any kind of EPA or any kind of quality checks or anything else like that. What, next you're going to tell me you put tires on the thing too? You affixed a windshield? It's just so stupid. Good God. And anybody that will pay. But the thing is, okay, hysterics aside with that, I also refuse to have that be used as a negotiating tactic. Any dealer that tries to tell me that their dealer prep fee or that their add tag is being reduced or eliminated as a part of a negotiating strategy is really quick to get lit up by yours truly. I don't take any quarter with anyone, nor will I give any to somebody that tries to come at me with that absolutely asinine negotiating tactic. It's not part of the sticker price, and it is not something that I am even open for discussing. End of conversation at that point. And I will have no problem getting up and walking out of that dealership if it is even brought up, because it ain't the only dealership that will sell me that vehicle, and it isn't the only vehicle the manufacturer makes. So that's my tip of the day and my stance on dealer added tags and prep fees, whatever the hell that means. Let me check in. Let's see. Oh, Raging saying I've got an 18 Ram with 321 and I love it. Can't imagine having the 392. What about going in the middle with a 355? That would be fantastic, Raging. The problem is they don't offer it. See, this is one of the things about Ram. I would love to get a 355 gear in the truck if it's just considered to be maybe a performance upgrade. They don't offer it. I mean, that's what the TRX comes with from the factory, but You cannot get a 355 in the Ram. It's either a 392 or a 321. And I got to tell you, like, again, the problem that I have with the 392, especially with the revised transmission ratios in the HP 75, is that first gear is a little bit more aggressive. And instead of a 392 compared to the DS or the Classic, as you may know it by, it is just a lot more aggressive in terms of feel. You roll into the throttle and immediately lights the tires up. It wants to shift early. The truck lays over. And even if you turn traction control off, which, by the way, you have to have a four-wheel drive truck to turn traction control completely off. But even if you turn the traction control off, which does kind of chill it out quite a bit, it still is trying to haze the tires for too long until it shifts into second. Whereas the 321, you roll into the gas and it will haze the tires pretty good, but it'll accelerate through the haze and then get to the 1-2 shift, making it, although maybe not on a prepared drag racing surface, but making it on the street the quicker of the two trucks by my estimation. I've been kind of doing this racing thing for a minute or two, so I don't know how far off I am with that estimation, but to my butt dyno, that 321 with the HP 75 gear felt pretty daggum powerful. X saying, that's awesome. I can't imagine flying something like that without shitting myself and passing out. I actually didn't get a chance to fly that thing. I have flown an actual AT6, which is a World War II trainer. And that was what I learned how to do Cuban 8s in, Immelman, which the airplane kind of sort of can do. But any kind of like rolls, which would be basically, this is going a while back though. It's the airplane that, and it was really cool because my flight instructor, she was absolutely awesome. But she was letting me get away with whatever I wanted to in this thing. But what was neat about it is you would have basically you just get the thing up to square, which is basically you're at 40 inches of manifold vacuum, or 40 inches of manifold pressure, I should say, pulling back on the stick, checking your horizon. And then from there, you just keep rolling into the throttle, pull it back, and you just do a real pretty arc in a loop. It's if you never have the opportunity to do it, I can tell you that if you're into anything mechanical, anything aviation based, that is the most awesome thing in the world to do it in that type of a platform. The AT6-2, which I didn't get a chance to fly, which I really wanted to, but the AT6-2 wouldn't give you the same experience because it's smaller, powerful, it's faster. I think it's about the same top speed, but in terms of power, it's just the whole thing is smaller. But when you roll into the throttle, and it's this big Pratt & Whitney, I think it's a 9-cylinder Pratt & Whitney, supercharged, single stage supercharged. Roll into the throttle in that AT6, and the thing just goes like that. It's crazy. So it literally accelerates at the rate that you move the throttle forward. It's not like it goes like this and it goes and then accelerates. Those old radial engines, and really the inline stuff does too, but they're so torquey. It's so much torque, and it's so much torque to weight ratio that when you've got the prop set to constant speed, you roll into that throttle and it just immediately, it feels like it just goes faster like that. It's crazy. Anyway, one of the coolest experience. I would love to do it every weekend if I can get away with it, but not a real fast roll rate or anything like that, but just a really neat, still very aerobatic, cool trainer. And it's the what every World War II fighter pilot would have trained in is an AT6 at some point. Even a Stearman. If you get a chance to fly in a Stearman, they're a lot of fun too. Let's see. But no. Oh, and so X, check this out. You would not. So you wouldn't be scared. I promise you, you wouldn't be. It's a lot more natural feeling than you might ever allow your brain to accept. But it is if you're into sports cars, if you're into motorcycles, um, racing, driving, anything anything that you've ever done performance wise has already trained your brain to do the flying stuff. Believe me when I tell you that. In terms of how you perceive the speed, how you perceive your horizon, it's all very, very, very similar. So anyway, believe me when I tell you, it's good to have a solid sense of, man, I don't know if I ever want to do that. But believe me, it's a lot more natural than you think. In fact, once you get up in the air and you start learning and you just start, basically making the machine do what your brain thinks the machine can do, it'll end up being like you don't even realize what you're doing with your hands and your feet. It's crazy. Like you don't think about what you're doing in a car when you're driving. Like you can't. Like you physically can't. It just doesn't work like that. You just drive the car. Same thing, flying or riding a motorcycle or anything like that. It's the exact same thing. You're doing it, and by the time you've done it, you don't even think about what you've done. It's really cool stuff. I'm really getting into aviation stuff, so you know me with that. Mike saying, evening, Mopars. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. Quick question about how long do the suspension bushings last for a Challenger under normal conditions? Man, I would say easily into 100,000 mile range. I haven't seen anybody really running into problems with the newer cars. Some of the older cars, some of the front suspension components can start to pop a little bit at about, I'd say around 100 to 120,000 miles, but it just depends on the part of the country that you're in. Cars from up north will experience that or can experience that potentially a little bit earlier. But man, I mean, it's not really a mileage thing. That's the other thing. It's not really a mileage thing. It's really more of an age thing because, man, we've had Hellcats in the shop, had 2 or 3 Charger Hellcats that were guys dailies. And these guys were outside sales guys too that were driving around a lot, well over 100,000 miles. I think the highest mileage one I want to say was like 168,000. Car drove like it was brand new. But you would see older cars, say like a 2012, 2013, with low mileage that had potential issues or was coming up on potentially having issues with those bushings. So, and it's typically with the front suspension. I never saw any issues with the rears. Also, don't know how those things were driven either. So kind of that. But there's really it's not like a mileage thing. It's really more like an age thing. I can tell you this: my car is great. It's got 20,000 miles on it. Does launches like that all the time, and no issues whatsoever with it. So, and it'll be 7. Yeah, it'll be 7 years old at the end of this year. So, but it kind of just sits on the other side of this wall unless we're taking it on a road trip, or it's going to the drag strip. Mike's saying, is there any brand or kit outside of OEM that I should look into? For the rears, I like BMR. If you're going to get something aftermarket, the Spawn, I think it's spelled spoon, but it's actually pronounced Spawn, were real loud, real clacky. In fact, I did a how-to video on installing the Spawn rear suspension, and you'll see me installing the lower trailing arms, the camber arms, and the upper trailing arms or upper control arms, I guess, in that car's case. I had to go get different bolts and actually cut them to fit inside the sleeve of the Spawn unit so that they didn't rattle and didn't move around as much, if you can believe that. So anyway, you can see that in the video that I put together. It's in the how-tos. It's floating around in there somewhere. Excuse me. But it's in there, and you can see what I had to do to get those components out of there. I don't really recommend swapping those out if you do not have to. And if you did, well, you're going to have to get at least the camber. I think it's the upper control arm has to, that's a massive, not a pain in the butt, but you'll see if you watch the video, you'll see what I'm talking about. But the spawns were clicky clacky really bad. The lower control arms, though, were pretty good. BMR, actually technically lower trailing arms, good units, no doubt about that. And they weren't bad, and they're real easy to install. Let's see. Oh, Ardell's saying, I totally agree. I will not buy into that. Yeah. Bear with me here just a second. He's talking about the add tag and the dealer prep nonsense. Absolutely stupid. X is saying, he's hanging out with Mike, saying, what's up? Oh, X saying, yeah, when he talked about that nitrogen part, I lost brain cells on what the guy was saying to you. Dude, I'm telling you. I mean, I even told recently, one guy said, look, if you're going to hit me with that, don't do it. I said, save that for somebody else. Save that for, listen, good on you for the hustle, but I ain't the sucker that's going to buy it. I ain't the one to bring that mess to. Let's keep this cool. Let's keep this friendly, and we can do business. You try to touch me up with something like that, and I will step right out of your dealership, and you'll never see me again. And I'll let everybody know that you tried that nonsense with me. And, of course, I'm wearing the MCL shirt. So, and I will flex that, but I have no problem. I'm unabashed when it comes to stuff like that. I let them know straight up, I will put your ass on blast. You try to rip me off like that. Again, I'm not sweating the hustle. I'm sweating the fact it has no style. Sell me something that makes sense and I'll pay for it. I want to know where my money's being spent. But this freaking circus trick of trying to tell me that you're giving me nitrogen without knowing what that is supposed to do. Like, what is it supposed to do? Well, it's dry. It's there's no moisture. There's no, what is this, Formula One? It doesn't work like that in the real world. Okay. Anyway, you guys know where I'm going with that. Absolutely lose my mind. Sovereign saying, hit the like button. Yeah, y'all hit that like button. Hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell. Makes a huge difference for me. Now it makes a lot bigger difference than you might think. So not just saying that because I want to ramp up a body count as far as subscribers, but it really does make a difference as far as people being able to see either the live show or the standalone videos. Things are a little bit different than what they were before. And it makes a difference for the likes, the shares, and things like that. So but I appreciate all you guys for sure hanging out. Someone saying, oops, Caps. Maybe something was up. X saying, thanks, B. I'm going to put that on my bucket list. You need to. No, X, you got to. And I'm telling you, if you've got, I tell you what, if you just go up for an introductory flight, that's all you got to do. It might be a little bit pricey, but if you ever get the opportunity to do it, absolutely do it. Check it out. And again, you'll be surprised how natural it is. The only time I've ever been weirded out, I've never really been scared because I just, my brain doesn't process that activity as scary, which is probably not a healthy thing. In fact, I know it's not. But but the reality is this: the only time I've ever been like, "Whoa, that was weird," was with helicopter helo training. So there is a thing that you have to do when you're learning how to fly a helicopter. It's something that you go through, even on your introductory flight, they'll do this. But it's called auto rotoring. And what it is basically it teaches you what it feels like when you lose power in a helicopter. And you always do, if you're learning how to fly in a helicopter, it's always in an R, excuse me, an R-22 or an R-44, which are small, piston powered, very agile, very maneuverable, small helicopters. And the guy that I was learning helo with is a bush pilot, and he's really good at aerobatics with this thing. I mean, it's scary. He turned this thing into a freaking lawn clipper if he wanted to. It's really good. Anyway, long story short, we did an auto rotor, and I was like, dude, let's do this. This is going to be a blast. So we go up, get up in the air, do a couple of tail whips, flying around. And I had some fixed wing, but not a lot of fixed wing experience coming into this. And this was just before I flew the AT-6 or got to fly the AT-6 for the first time. And so a little bit kind of like, it's strange because a helicopter, you feel like the whole idea of the helicopter is it's like you're a marionette, or there's a marionette above you and you're controlling the puppet, so to speak. Anyway, long story short, grabs a collective, yanks up on the collective, pitches nose down hard, left rudder, basically left. Oh God, it's been a while now. Anyway, left pedal in essence to get this thing. It just goes, takes off, pulls back. We climb up, and I'm mesmerized by the little. Are you going straight? That's one of the main things in a helicopter you have to worry about is, are you going straight? And you have this little piece of thread on the glass. And if it's on the seam, you're going straight. If not, you're in a skid, so to speak. Anyway, it's a lot of funny stuff that you do. Anyway, get to, I don't know, we're probably at about 1,000 feet, and actually at 1,500 feet, auto rotors it. And this thing is coming down, and he's just hanging out. And as this thing is coming down, we're under auto rotor, no power. And you're disengaging the clutch basically. And about 100 feet up, engages the clutch, goes wide open throttle, yanks collective straight up, pitches down forward. So we just come down and then come straight out like this. I was like, what the hell? Anyway, because you're in this glass bubble right in front of you. So everything's out there. It's really cool. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, I'm trying to remember exactly. Was it 50? I think it was 1,500 feet where he dropped it, and we just hummed it straight down. Anyway, this guy's amazing. And again, if you ever get that opportunity, well worth it, because it's a completely different experience altogether. And there's a reason why a lot of guys, a lot of hot rodders are big into aviation, either through engine theory or through actual flight time. These guys have taken lessons or anyway, long story short, there's a reason why that so many guys gravitate to that, because a lot of the same principles apply, and it's just a cool way to have some fun. So, but that was the only time I was like, we're about to auger this thing. And then he just absolutely yanks up on the collective, which also is part of the throttle in a helicopter, pitches that thing straight forward. Again, hard left pedal, which keeps it from twisting. You pitch up on the collective, and it'll come over to the right. Just the way that the thing is affected, the blades are affected, torque on the body, the rest of that stuff. Anyway, really cool stuff. Absolutely 100% would recommend it. But that did yours truly. I did pucker up a little bit on that. He got me good. X is hanging out with Night. Let's see. Chuck saying, how often should you change diff fluid? I will change mine once a year if I'm beaten up on the Hellcat quite a bit. I will go on record as saying that in a truck or something like that, Buffy hadn't had hers changed in 166,000 miles. There's not, I would say, about every For a daily, about every hundo. I like really ought to do it about every 50, but if you at least you get it knocked out twice in 100,000 miles, you should be in good shape. If you're beating on the car mercilessly, once every, again, 40 to 50,000 miles will be good. Just make sure you get the right stuff. Go to your Dodge dealership, give them the last 8 of your VIN, have them give you exactly what you need. Oh, X is saying, sounds good. I'll Google some places, see if they have those classes. Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, Hilo for sure. Again, introductory flight. Yeah, you can do 100 introductory flights if you wanted to. They're going to charge you for it, but just tell them, look, man, I've always been interested in this kind of stuff. Would love to check it out. What's it like? What's it like to fly? I'd recommend Hilo before I'd recommend fixed wing. Because no matter what you're doing in a helicopter, it's pretty damn cool. Like airplanes, you can just kind of fly the thing, but helicopters are cool because you can see things. I mean, it's a completely different existence. But check it out. It's a lot of fun. Look up the R-22 or the R-44. Those aircraft are the ones that you would probably be flying in. The R-22 looks like basically like a Volkswagen Beetle with a blade on the top of it. It's pretty cool. But that's what you would be looking into. And again, it's a lot of fun because it's a completely different experience. Don't let it freak you out completely. The Hilo stuff is going to be it's going to be less natural than fixed wing will be for you. But once you get your bearings right and you kind of get a sense of like what and how this machine operates, when he hands over the controls to you, you've got an instructor who can just, grab the controls. He's got his own collective and all. In fact, you share a stick. It's this floppy, it's a stick on a stick like this. And it just kind of flops there and you just do that, and he'll make slight adjustments for you. But anyway, if you can check it out, it'll be a lot of fun for you. If you've never done it before, you'll be able to tell folks, hey, I was able to do this. When I was messing with this, especially with the Hilo stuff, was a lot more interesting to me because it was, I can fly the thing. Okay. I can fire it up, get up into the air, nose forward, fly it around, get up into the air, check it out, do it. The only thing I could never really do, because I'd start kind of overcompensating and I just didn't get a chance, ended up moving away from where I was when I was taking all these classes. The one thing I couldn't do is the one thing that makes helicopters cool, which is to make them hover. But larger helicopters are actually a lot easier to fly because there's more mass. And so that moment of inertia that I talk about, what that is applying to in this case is the fact that a little bit of input has a lot of effect on a smaller amount of mass when we're talking about this type of a piece of equipment than the same hand motion would have on a larger, more massive piece of equipment that takes more inertia to get it to move in free space. Even though they're both weightless, so to speak, it takes more input to get something heavier to just start moving, or that moment of inertia to be overcome. Anyway, completely off subject on that. And I love it because I love that kind of stuff. That's what I go just all day long about the aviation stuff because I love it. It's a lot of fun. But getting back to this whole, truck buying experience, the shopping diaries, if you will. I got to tell you guys, man, I have learned a lot about what is really out there and available today. But one thing that I've learned more than anything is that every single one of these platforms, whether it's Ford, Dodge, Chevrolet, it could be Nissan, Toyota, which round out the only ones you're really going to look at. All of them have problems. If you dig enough and you start talking enough, talk to guys that work on these things, talk to owners, former owners. Why did you get rid of it? What was the deal? all of them have problems. Ford, I hate to say this, Ford has some of the most problems. They also have some of the best driving trucks that are out there. So there's that. Dodge really doesn't have the number of issues now that it used to have, but it does have one sort of weakness, and that is the lack of power plant options, because let's face it, the 5.7, a little bit long in the tooth, although that's not a bad thing, because at 5.7, it basically 400 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque, just like everybody else. By the way, it set the standard for half-ton trucks with that 400 horsepower, 400 pound-feet of torque. Is a great runner. And as long as you're not trying to compare it to the 6.2 liter in the Chevy, which you've got to spend a bunch of money to get that truck, or the 3.5 liter EcoBoost, which you can get in any trim level, with the only downside to it, again, being the high maintenance that engine seems to need, and the seemingly scary proposition of cam phasers that I've heard of reports of them going out very early. But the problem is, very early is 60 to 70,000 miles. 60 to 70,000 miles is past, or at least at and past, the powertrain warranty on that truck. I don't want to be one of the guys that has the powertrain issue at that low of mileage, and then I got to come back and shell out $3 large to get it fixed. Meanwhile, I've been changing out spark plugs every 30,000 miles on the thing. I know some guys go a lot longer, but let's be honest. If you're going to have to maintain it at that level, is the extra performance really worth it? And if you've got one, are you maintaining it like that? Are you even worried about longevity with that engine? I'd love to get everybody's input on this, because the more that I have asked for input on some of these platforms, the manufacturers, when I say platforms, I mean the engine, the manufacturers, and the issues that they've had, I haven't really seen a whole lot of folks come back and go, "Oh, it's great. I've had nothing but great experience with it." It's always something a little bit concerning. I'll put it at that. X is saying, right on the money. Every brand has their issues. It all depends on what you're willing to live with. Absolutely, 100%. Some are saying, I'd figured Toyota would have the least of the problems. Here's the thing with the Toyota. So I know that they're having wastegate issues with their engines, but here's the twist. The Toyota, first of all, they don't offer a V8 anymore, which is really frustrating, because that iForce was a really good engine. But here's the problem that I have. The V6 that they offer is basically a slightly detuned, at least in terms of power per displacement. It would be not a version, but I think you guys understand what I mean when I say a detuned version of the Ford's EcoBoost engine. Now, I know it's not the same engine, but it's 3.5 liters, twin turbo, just shy of 400 horsepower and just shy of 500 pound-feet of torque. Kind of falls under the same. Basically, I'll put it like this. I'm looking at that engine through the same window of concern. I'm going to have to run higher octane fuel with it, potentially, I would say, to keep the thing out of knock. And once you go into power enrichment with a little bitty engine, that cylinder pressure is going to be significantly higher than in a V8, which means potentially pushing that boost past rings. You're potentially, which is a crankcase pressure potential issue. But more to the point, that much higher pressure is going to be obviously creating more wear, creates a lot more heat. Yes, and I get it. I know you can engineer anything out of, in terms of problems, you can engineer problems out of existence. I get that. I really do. But I also understand through my own experience with fuel testing and with data logging boosted applications that you're not always going to get the best quality of fuel. And something that is that little in terms of displacement, an engine that's that small, that's getting force fed so much air, it's going to be more fuel quality sensitive. And the V8's not going to be so much. So, and I get direct injection and I understand that argument too. But again, I have to raise the concern because the lack of evidence and that would point towards a positive outcome with the EcoBoost alone. Just again, with my own family's experience with EcoBoost vehicles and with friends of mine with EcoBoost vehicles or 5-liter Fords with the new 10-speed, just leave me a bit concerned about long-term durability. And this is kind of funny too, because in the work trucks we used to have in our fleet were all Fords and they were all Coyote based. They were just the 6-speed automatics. We still have one of those trucks in the fleet and it's got, I don't know, 270,000 miles on it. The last one, the second to the last one, went out with 286,000 miles on it. So by that track record, you could say, damn, that 5-liter, when you just change the oil, which most of us are kind of gearheads, we all change oil a lot. But if you just change the oil, they seem to last a long time. The funny thing is so do the Dodges, though. The Dodges, the last one that we had go to auction had 311,000 miles on it. And it was running like a champ. Buffy's got about 160, and she runs great, knock on wood. So, again, just Toyota has a reputation of quality. And because of that reputation, it's easy to disassociate past performance with future performance. In other words, if they were building good stuff before, the new stuff should be just as good, maybe. But again, I've heard that they're already having problems with wastegates with these things, and it's just the beginning. We don't have enough of these things out in the real world, I don't think, with enough miles on them and enough durability testing, daily bashing and use, misuse, and abuse to really be able to mount a sophisticated argument that would imply that they have the durability that we would hope to expect from a Toyota branded power plant. X is saying that's what I was thinking. Night hanging out with Sovereign. You say no V8 anymore? Yeah, no V8. In fact, I was blown away by that. This is something that I learned along the way is that, yeah, they did away with the iForce and you can only get that 3.5 liter. Sovereign saying, how about Dodge's Cummins engine? I haven't driven one. I'm not really a player at it, mainly because it's just from a power performance standpoint, I'm going to live with this thing and I want to have fun with it. You know, the truck that I drive has got to be fun, quick. It's got to be able to just be a fun thing to drive around. And it's really powerful. I think it's 430 something foot-pounds of torque, 238 horsepower. I mean, it's not a bad setup. So, in fact, I put it like this with the especially the new Eco Diesel, the guys with the Eco Diesels, the ones that buy them end up loving them. Those guys absolutely adore their Eco Diesels. I'm not an Eco Diesel guy, but I get why guys would love that combination, especially if you're towing. But anyway, again, I'm not really familiar with that thing, but we'll see. And again, it's the newest version of it. I don't know what kind of longevity it's going to have either. We'll just have to see. X is saying he loves the Cummins. Skid saying it's not a Cummins. That's the problem. He's talking about the one in the 1500. Yeah, I'm not. I guess it's a Stellantis I think it's a Stellantis owned variant of some engine, I'm sure. Skid said, I think I would like it in the Wrangler. Yeah, the Wrangler's got its own diesel that I think is the only engine you would want to get in a Wrangler right now. I'm not a big fan of the 3.6. My wife's 3.8 lower revving engine makes a lot more. It's a lot punchier down low. I mean, a whole lot punchier down low than that 3.6. Just a swing and a miss for me with the 3.6 and that platform. It is gutless in terms of torque, and the 3.8, that's all it is. It's just right off the bat torque, and then it does fade away, but it's supposed to because it's in a Jeep. It's doing Jeep things. Sovereign saying, his demonology was looking for a truck and settled for the Cummins to pull his trailer with the Soul Snatcher and all of his gear in it. Yeah, the Cummins for the 3/4 ton and the 1 ton trucks is great. They've got an HO version of it that makes like 1,000 foot-pounds of torque, and they've got the regular version of it, I want to say, makes like 890 or 850 or something like that. I mean, they're good engines. You just got to maintain them just like anything else. They last a long time. But yeah, he did end up going with that with the Cummins, I believe. Skids is liking the 4-liter 6-cylinder. That was a fun engine. The 190 horse 4-liter, good engine all the way around. My dad had a Cherokee with that engine in it, and it ran good. That leads me to something else too about all this truck shopping that I've been doing. And by the way, I am looking forward to getting you guys that 321 versus 392 gear driving impressions thing. I would love to hear y'all's opinions on that. Again, I can only give my perspective, and a lot of that is jaded. And I'm going to have to just, if I don't say it in the video, it's only because I forgot to mention this. But my experience with 321 versus 392 is that Buffy, which is a classic Hemi truck, 321, but Buff's a tradesman. So Buffy is light. Buffy on the draggy went a 1460 something, maybe it's a 1475, 1465, one of the two, at 95 and change. At about like 3,000 DA. Okay. I mean, it was kind of crazy, but it was a high DA when I ran that on the draggy, and for reasons I can't post it right now. But the fact of the matter is that the truck ran really, really, really well. And I couldn't imagine that truck with 392s aside from, a random situation where I'm at partial throttle in a bit of a gearing doldrum, which every transmission has. And in fact, it's the same gearing doldrum because, again, RPM per speed for both transmissions, 321 gear versus a 309 gear in a Scat Pack, of course, much smaller tires. So you have to, the tire is the factor here. They have the same doldrum. That weird, like no matter what you want to do, the thing can't downshift, but you're kind of stuck in a gear for a minute. That's the same for both transmissions. And so it's extremely familiar territory if you own a Scat Pack as far as the way that the truck drives with a 321 gear, where again, the 392 is just, it's got a weird quirk about it on the highway, where when you tip into the throttle for a downshift, it'll downshift, but it doesn't accelerate because the speed that you're going is the speed that much throttle input would give you for the gear that's lower. So in other words, because of RPM and load, let's say this much throttle input gets you 75. And then when it going to downshift, that much throttle, that much throttle input, let's say it downshifts, but it would need that much, a little bit more throttle input to give it more RPM so that it would carry the gear. It's just a weird existence with the 392 gear. Now you shower down on it, depending on the mile an hour, but it doesn't, this is kind of the resounding theme of the 392 gear. is that it's constantly trying to, the gear is trying to catch up with the truck. With the 321, the truck is trying to catch up with the gear, especially on the highway. If that makes any sense, it feels like the engine is laboring in a way when it's probably not, but it just feels like that's a weird psychological like thing. And you'd have to drive them both back to back to get a clear understanding of what I'm talking about. Something that has to be experienced. Putting into words is just kind of tough, unfortunately. X is asking, did you say that you had a Samurai? I did. 87 Samurai about a year ago, and it was cool. Yes. I think this one was an 86 that I was driving around. And dude, the Samurais are awesome. Obviously, they're not meant to go long distances on any highways or whatever, but in their own element, they're a lot of fun. I had one that I was driving to the beach all the time, and I freaking love that thing. Absolutely loved it though. In fact, if you live, this is where Samurais just are the tops. If you live in and work in a more like cityscape environment, Samurais are awesome because you can buzz around town. They're not super quick or fast, but they're fast enough. But you're always at wide open throttle in a Samurai, and they'll fit into any parking space. Plus, if you get boxed in, if you got a buddy with you, you can pick the thing up on one end and scoot it over. So we used to do that. In fact, we had, when I was in school, high school, we had people that had like little Geo Metros or the Samurais or whatever, and we'd pick the cars up and move them around. It was kind of funny. Anyway, but I love the Samurais. Any of those things are a lot of fun. Skids is asking, if you're going to pull often with the truck, would that influence your decision on the gear ratio? Yes, it absolutely would. So if I was going to be pulling a lot, especially if I was towing something that was large, not necessarily even heavy, but had a lot of aerodynamic drag, I would absolutely go with a 392 and wouldn't even think twice about it. But if you're not towing, I probably wouldn't go with the 392 because you would basically be losing eighth gear with that 321 because it would probably never shift into eighth with the load you'd be putting on it. It would stay in seventh, which eerily enough is basically eighth gear with like seventh in a 321 geared truck is tacking. It's as about the same RPM as eighth gear does in a 392 geared truck. And basically the 321 has an extra gear all the time that it can downshift into, it seems like. The 392 has an extra gear down low to get it moving. So if you want to really boil it down to that, that's in essence the difference between the two. And again, on the highway, the gear always feels like it's trying to catch up to the truck with a 392, whereas a 321, the truck is catching up with the gear. And so you get a sense of acceleration where you don't get a sense of acceleration with the same given throttle input. With the 321, you don't get that with the 392 gear. Fred's saying, rebuild a 71 F100 with a 3 on a tree. Man, I've got a 72 GMC with an automatic, and it's sitting right there. Love that truck. 400 small block. It is a tire frying apparatus. I can tell you that. 3/4 ton truck. Oh, X is saying, he's talking about the Samurai. I agree. Cool to do some light off-roading with. Oh, yeah. I mean, it'll buzz you around a field, no problem. You just take that one. That Suzuki, we took it mudding. Someone saying, yes, Suzuki did have the sidekick. The Samurai predates the sidekick. And it's a lot more agricultural. The Samurai's got a 1.3 liter 3-cylinder that I mean, it makes the fact that it's turning, I guess it's making horsepower, but Samurai really would cap out at about 65 miles an hour unless you just threw the wood at it. But in terms of modifications, but the guys that have Samurais, dude, you cannot talk them out of them. They absolutely love them, and so I would say beyond a shadow of a doubt that if you can get your hands on one, grab it. They're a lot of fun, especially if you need to have something that buzzy around in like a city car where you just need to be able to hop in, you know, get a small parking spot. If you need to jump a curb and just whatever you need to do with a Samurai, you can just do it because they're not fast enough to get you a ticket, and there's always that whole deal. Oh, they'll flip if you anything that's that small and light is going to be easy to flip. That's why they have roll bars. Keep wearing your seatbelt. Don't do dumb stuff. What's funny is that in the Samurai, right above your head, it's got you will flip if you do stupid stuff. And anyway, that I remember that really well too. Skits is saying was thinking the Hayabusa had the same displacement as the Samurai. Yeah, and about 4 times the horsepower too. X is saying, what happened to Suzuki? I remember seeing commercials when I was a kid. Man, I don't know. I guess they got to a certain point with being able to or not being able to meet EPA standards, and so they checked out. A lot of folks that there was also a when gas, a lot of the V8s really started coming back. The Samurai and the cars that they were making, really with the Sidekick or anything else, they were small. I mean, they just didn't really play well in the American market, but they, I think, survived and thrived in other markets. So I believe that is the case with those. Let's see. Oh, Sovereign saying his dad has a 71 K5 with a 350 and a 350 turbo transmission. Yep, it was orange with a white top and some wood-like trim. The engine lasted up to 1993. Then the valves burned up. They can do that. Skids is saying that they being Suzuki makes cars in other countries. Yeah, they're the type of vehicle that they make does really well in other markets. It just when you live in the United States where the speed limit is basically just don't get a ticket, then smaller vehicles like that just don't really do well. Sovereign saying the valves burned up because the engine was set up for leaded fuel. What happened is, it actually beat the valve seats to death on those heads. So yeah, I get it. And for that, you just need to get a modern set of any modern set of aluminum heads, throw it on the thing. It'll be fine. Sovereign said he was going up a steep upgrade and all of a sudden it lost power and had a hell of a time climbing up the grade. That's exactly what will happen. Especially if you start, the valves get hot, it's called tuliping, and the valve spring actually tries to suck the valve past the valve guide or past the valve seat in the head, and it starts kind of creeping. It's bad, but yeah, that does happen. In fact, my Lightning actually had tulip exhaust valves because the tune that was on it before I bought it, the tune that was on that truck was way too didn't have enough timing in it. The EGTs were real high. One bag KZ saying, haven't seen a Samurai in years. I've been wanting an old Jeep Grand Wagoneer lately, but damn, the prices got outrageous. My uncle had one of those, and I loved that thing. And I was looking for one for a long time. You can't find one. They really don't exist. And yeah, not that are nice at any price that you would really want to pay for something of that age with that level of performance by comparison to modern vehicles. They're great to look at, super cool. They drive nice, and they'll do 100 miles an hour. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, it just sucks because it's hard to find a nice one, and when you do, you're going to be paying out the ass for the thing. It's just tough. Oh, Sovereign saying you had to get a new crate engine. That's what most guys do anyway. With small block Chevy stuff, you really don't repair small block Chevys so much anymore. You just get a new crate motor. Roy saying, I came in late. What's up, Mr. Being Friends? What's up, Roy? X is saying, yeah, that makes sense. I remember a spokesperson for a local Suzuki dealership was called the Suzuki Man. So we're saying, the crate motor. Oh, he got the Target Master 210 horse. I know that engine well. It was weaker than the original engine, so he sold the engine to his brother and he rebuilt it and dropped it in another Chevy. The trick with that, you could get the 383 from Chevy Performance. It was basically a 350 replacement engine, and it was like, why would you replace it with a 350 if you can get a 383 for basically the same price? So that's what a lot of guys did. Oh, it looks like that's what he was thinking. Sovereign's dad needed a crate 383. That's probably what I would have done too. Look, the 400 small block in Sierra it runs great. I don't know what the blow by is. Honestly, it's probably valve seats or valve seals, I should say. It's got 441 castings, and they're not awesome heads, but if that thing ever really develops something serious on the engine side, I would just put a Blueprint 383 in it. Something mild, just the soup to nuts crate motor, throw everything on the front of it as far as accessory drive, and call it good. I might just go back in I don't know if the difference would be that great, but go back in with another 400 small block that they make. Basically 475 horse. Thing would rip, and they've got warranties on these things too. So I'm saying he sold the original engine and was stuck with the new crate motor. Needless to say, he had a hell of a time tuning the new motor with the old transmission. So I'm saying it was another 350. Let's see. Roy's hanging out. Doomfist. It's saying that the important thing he has is that it's running now, which is good. So yeah, a lot of when it comes to the older stuff, oh man, I just have such a hard time pulling the trigger on any of the older stuff anymore, because the more you're around it, the more you pick up on the fact that a lot of this stuff is just patched together, not really safe, and just doesn't perform to the level that modern vehicles perform to. In reality, they are unsafe, and unless you go through the entire vehicle really about once every 40, 50 years with brake lines, master cylinders, and everything else, the car's coming up on 40 years old, you're going to have to start looking at replacing those parts, and it's not sexy, and it ain't no fun either. I had to do that with Sierra, and she was long overdue for it, and luckily she decided to fail literally sitting in the driveway. So my girl did me good. So I, when it comes to the older stuff, I kind of really wanted a Ram Charger, man. I've been, I get the whole thing with the Wagoneer, but I'm kind of a Ram Charger guy at heart. And man, it's just so hard to find a decent one. And if they're decent and at a good price, chances are it's going to need a lot of work. And if they're decent and have been gone through, then those guys want a boatload of money for a rig that doesn't have any power, man. I mean, they all have little 318s, and it's like on your mark, get set, get out and push kind of stuff. And it's, you just don't really want it. So, Sovereign's talking about, don't get me started on his other vehicle, POS Mercury Capri. Yeah, if it was a Fox Capri, that would be pretty cool though. Boom 70 saying, what up, you Mason? Love the channel. Trying to decide between a Ram 1500 or a 5.7 Challenger for a third car. In no rush, I plan on getting it as a present when I get promoted. I would probably go with the truck if I were you, for a number of reasons, but primarily, especially if you're getting a new one, the truck is just going to be a lot more versatile. And when it comes time to move it forward, the trucks are going to have a higher resale value, a little bit better residual value. Normally, is how that ends up working out. But that's just my own personal opinion, at least my experience with them anyway. Skid's saying, damn, those Ram Chargers were so cool. Remember the one that Chuck Norris drove in Lone Wolf? Yep. So there's one that I'm looking at, and in fact, I drove by it today. I didn't, it's like make an offer. And it's the maroon and silver two-tone. The paint needs a little bit of work, but of course, it's got the burgundy interior and it's stone stock. I mean, it would make for a really neat cruising around kind of truck, but I've got a really neat cruising around kind of truck in Sierra. And the thing that I don't really like about it is, number one, again, 318. Number two, not necessarily a problem, but throttle body injected, which that unit goes out, you're switching it to carburation at that point. So, you've already got the electric fuel pump and it's already a pretty decent setup. You just go with a return style fuel system and reduce it down to about 6 PSI, other than the 8 to 10 that it runs for the throttle body injection, and you're good to go. But I don't know, man. There's just part of me, I just don't want to do the work. I'd rather be doing work on something else, something that's actually safe to drive at normal highway speeds. The older stuff, I'm not going to say it wasn't designed to drive at those speeds. They do have overdrive transmissions, which is one thing Sierra doesn't have, which is another reason why I either want to get it re-geared or go 700 R4. We'll see. But anyway, there's always a compromise, and there's always a catch when you get into the older stuff, for sure. Oh, Sovereign saying he did recall he had a really nice cherry looking, talking about his dad, 58 Chevy step-side pickup. I think it was awesome. Had to sell it back in 85 from 2,500. Totally missed that thing. Even had the baby moon caps. Very cool. Yes, little dog dishes. What's funny, you mentioned the 58 Chevy. Around here, there are 3 different 58 Chevys. One of them just sits under a carport, doesn't ever move. There's another, the other 2 they're kind of clones of each other. Flat black, nose to tail. One of them has black steely wheels with bullet center caps and chrome lug nuts. And that one, I think, I don't know what's in it. It's either a healthy crate 383 or 400, or it's an LS variant. Either way, it's fast as hell. And the guy that owns it is funny because we have a lot of the same things that we do. He was out just beating the hell out of that truck the other day, which was hysterical, over in a spot over here in Velocito. The other one, I don't know if it's any more or less sedate. It's flat black. It's on torque thrust Ds, and it looks really good too. But I've never really seen him driving that thing too much. Every once in a while, he'll drag it out. But the dude with that first one I was telling you about with the Steelies, that thing sounds healthy. And again, I don't know if it's a 383, a 400 small block, or LS or what, but it will absolutely get it. I can tell you that. It's probably a solid low 12-second truck, the way it sits. Oh, Skids is saying he's missing his 67 Camaro Rally Sport convertible with all this old car nostalgia talk. Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, I like the old school stuff. I really do. From a cruiser point of view, from a styling point of view, nothing can touch the old stuff because they didn't have the same safety precautions that we have now. But that's the compromise that you make. I mean, they're really good looking, and you just something really to feast your eyes on. But I have got to tell you, it's really hard to, I don't know. It's really hard to say, yeah, I'd drive that Ram Charger around everywhere. I probably would without a second thought, but it would just be so underpowered by today's standard that I just don't know like, again, aside from just taking the thing, it would cruise on the highway just fine. It would just be the driving experience would be a little bit less than what you would see in a modern car. But you know what? I say all that, but then I sit here and gush over my wife's 92 Rally Sport. It's got a 305, makes the same horsepower, less torque than the 318, but the same horsepower as the 318. Both of them throttle body, and that car is fun to drive because it's so punchy. So, but again, it's also 1,000 pounds lighter. Roy, thank you very much, brother. I appreciate that. Saying, Mr. B, when are you going to race again live? Thanks for being on and teaching us. Well, let's see. So we're in the, I guess, technically 4th week of July, even though July started on a Friday. The track should be opening up sometime in August. And I will probably start getting some runs in towards the end of August. I would be willing to guess, give or take sometime around the middle to the end of August before I can get any time on the drag strip. But hopefully it'll be coming much, much sooner than later. And who knows, you may be seeing, if depending on when we can order trucks, whatever the latest flavor of the month is for me in terms of trucks, to go to the drag strip as well. And again, guys, I am torn right now a little bit still, even though I've said what I've said about the transmission with the Ford. I am torn between the Ford with a 5-liter and the Ram with either a 321 or 392 gear. But Roy, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Again, I'm hoping to get you guys some more live videos soon, but I do need to get the car to the drag strip. We will have, August will be hot. September will be hot. October and November to get the car kind of dialed in, because Moparmageddon will be coming back in July. So that will be a small event. Looks like we're good to go for the 1st or 2nd week in January. Sorry. And we'll see what the weather looks like then. But if it ends up playing out the way that I hope it plays out, going after that 1008 again, hopefully we can get close to it, maybe get a little bit better. I'm not going to do anything with the tune. If I'm being honest, guys, the car is what it is. I enjoy the car now for what it is, but more to the point, I enjoy it a lot more for what it ain't. And, there's always potentially a pull. You can be tempted, if you will, to throw more power at one of these Hellcats, or really any of these cars, to be honest. But the Hellcats are real easy because it's low hanging fruit. And everybody asks, why don't you pulley it? Well, you guys know, been around the channel long enough. I do all this fuel testing, all of the fuel quality testing, I should say. There are reasons why I don't. And I think the car is pretty well set up. I do need to drive it and get some miles underneath the thing. I don't know, probably do that next weekend. So we'll see, but hopefully, man, I really do appreciate that contribution to the cause. I will be, like I say, hopefully being able to get the car back on track come August, getting her ready for what will be my next shot at trying to get better than the 1007 that is the number that is eluding me right now. This 93 octane stock boost number that's out there. But, when you're at the top of the food chain with the stock boost 93 octane, you're going to have people coming after you. I get it. But no, the car is running great. And like I say, it's going to be fun. It'll be nice to finally get it back on track. That's for sure. Sovereign saying, and again, thank you, Roy. I appreciate that, bud. Roy's saying, I'm sorry, Sovereign saying, he doesn't remember the engine that he had in his 58. My grandfather had a 60. I can't remember the year of that truck. That thing deteriorated though. That's all we're saying. All I know is it sounded really, really good. Oh, I bet. Saying he misses the sound and the smell. Roy saying, okay, thanks. Yeah, I understand that. Roy saying, I haven't taken my Scat Pack out to track yet, but I will this year. Definitely do. Do it on a tire, though, if you can, on a drag radial, for sure. Make your experience a lot more enjoyable. Sovereign saying he's going through some family archive videos. I'll take some snapshots of this truck and send them via Instagram. Cool, yeah, send them over. Love the old school hot rod trucks, man. I've always been a big fan of the hot rod pickup truck, man. I don't know what it is about trucks. In fact, oh, this is breaking my heart too. There is this kills me. So I like kind of off the beaten path type stuff. There is a 65, 66, somewhere around in there. I guess you'd call it a roller. It is a step side long bed, and it would make for an awesome freaking hot rod. And I like it because it's different. You know, everybody's got the short bed stuff, and I get it. They look good, but I like kind of the one-off goofy stuff. And so the long bed step side's kind of it's not rare. It's only rare now. I mean, I know they made a lot of, I'm sure they made a lot back in the day, but it's rare to see one now. And it's just kind of dilapidated. And the guy, I guess, just bought the thing. I think I guess this place would call it like a body shop. It's a detail place that also does some light body work. And this thing's just sitting out there and it's driving me nuts. There's also a 60, what year is this thing? Probably a 63 or 64 Dodge D100 long bed. And I don't know what happened to this thing. It was buzzing around town, and now it's sitting on jack stands at a dude's shop. And I would love to get my hands on that thing, because that would be, call up TTS, find me a 6-liter, put a nag one in this thing, tub the rear end, put this thing down, and have a burnout machine, long wheelbase truck. I mean, that would be sick to death. Skid's saying, thought you were going to say 65 Dodge. Seen some 60s Dodge hot rod trucks that have been done up beautifully. So we had one, and that's the truck, y'all. So I've been asked this quite a bit before, what were your favorite cars at the shop when you're working for Pikes? And it would probably be like, what? When I would talk about the cars that I really, really liked, a lot of times it would be something that you just wouldn't expect. Now, I've talked about that 14 Challenger that I really liked a lot. It was the candy stripe car, white with the red stripes, manual car. And for some reason, that car is just such a sweetheart. I love that thing. There was a couple others, but in the mix, there was TTS had built this D100, and it's silver. And if you ever see a silver D100 on Instagram or whatever, it's really good. I think it was TTS that built it. And one of the guys' names that worked there was Jose. Anyway, they had brought that thing by, and we were putting the tune on the 6.1 that they swapped into this thing. And I got started on the tune. I data logged it, did a couple of changes to the tune. Alex finished it up, and then I finished up with the transmission tune on that truck. Anyway, mainly shift points and stuff like that. Nothing too crazy, but that truck was so much fun to drive. Didn't weigh anything, had 373 gears in the back of it. It was quick, and it was just a treat to drive. Anyway, you'll see it pop up every once in a while. And man, I got to tell you, of all the vehicles that we had go through the shop, that one is absolutely number one. Absolutely number one. And then probably that candy striped Challenger that ended up getting a D1 supercharger, pro charger on it. And then probably Paul's car, Excessive, would be either number 2 or 3 on that list. That was a really, really good. That's Racer X. That is a really good car. Was a really good car. So that one would be in like the top 3. And then this other dude, Fernando, had Racer X's. It was kind of a clone of Racer X's car. So those two would kind of walk in lockstep. And then aside from that, man, there really wasn't or wouldn't have been anything, at least right now, that comes to mind, except for there was a guy that had brought in, I mean, this thing was pristine. You could eat off of this thing. It was a 5.7 6-speed car with a E-Force supercharger. That one was really nice to drive. I mean, it was a super clean car. In fact, I wouldn't drive the car wearing shoes. I wore my socks and made sure my hands were clean and the clothes I was wearing were pristine. Not that I wasn't clean when I got into people's cars. It was just this one was so clean. But yeah, I literally would take off my shoes to move that car around the shop. Oh, Skids is saying, I'll look around Instagram. Sounds badass. Yeah, just if you look up, I don't know if I guess it was TTS. Yeah, it was a TTS that built that truck. It was silver D100 TTS. They may have either added or hashtag Pikes Performance Tunes. Anyway, when you see it, it's silver with kind of a gray looking wheel, perfect stance, the whole bit. I mean, that truck is just perfection. Powerful enough, not like freak you out kind of fast. Again, that solid deep 12-second truck, maybe even high 11-second truck. Nothing that would scare you half to death, but would keep you very well entertained. Just the right balance of power, handling, looks, theater with the way it sounded and the way that it would just carry a burnout. Just the total package, man. That thing, if I would ever get rid of a car to get another car, it would be that truck. That would be one of the very few vehicles that I would be like, all right, yeah, I'll get rid of the Hellcat. It would be something along the lines of that particular truck. Very specific, but for very specific reasons. Just absolutely awesome overall. But yeah, check out that truck. It is flippin' awesome. But, voice is starting to check out, fellas. So, guys, with that, I am going to check out, though. Thank you very much, Roy. Thank you very much for the contribution to Cosplay. I really appreciate it more than you know, man. I really do. Hopefully, I'm trying to get you guys some of the weird stuff that I'm running into with this whole truck shopping experience. One of the strangest things about this is, we're into July pretty deep at this point. The order system for the 2023 model year was supposed to open literally almost to the day a month ago from today. Today's the 23rd of July. It was supposed to open on the 22nd of June. It still isn't there yet. And, it's one of these things where I have to admit something here. The wind is starting to come out of my sails a little bit in terms of just how motivated and hyped up I am about getting a truck, mainly because of the dealership experiences that I've had. And, when you're going to spend the amount of money that a new truck costs these days, even for a base model work truck type truck, is going to cost you $40-something thousand. It's very, very difficult to walk away from the deal feeling good when you've had really strange dealership experiences, especially like I had with the one with the Chevrolet dealerships, not just one, but two. And I'm starting to get the sense that the more I look into this, there's only two brands that I can really feel comfortable looking into. That's Ford and Ram. And between the two, the one that seems to fit me the best is Ram. And that's not because it's Mopar Chat Live. I come from a Ford background. So, giving everybody equal opportunity to take a look at this, the Ford just scares me with the amount of issues that I've heard of, both in research and in not in personal experience, but friends of mine that have these things that have told me the same thing. They're just transmission issues. So, the more I look into the trucks, I can see where the Ford has an advantage. But in terms of ride quality, especially at the level that I'm looking at, the Ram is going to be really hard to beat. So anyway, as I learn more and as I gather information, I will bring it to you guys. But no matter what, still can't order a 2023. Nobody knows when they're going to be actually making these things and shipping them. So there's that to consider. But as that all develops, I will be the first to let you guys know how that's all going. Hopefully get down to the drag strip soon and start getting this girl ready for her runs this winter and fall. So with that, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Let me catch right back up with you guys before I get out. Roy's saying, I don't care about any Dodge trucks other than the Little Red Express. Don't forget the Warlock. That was in there. This kid just saying, expand your horizons. It's a nice truck, by the way. Everybody, yeah, Skid's saying, stay cool, B. You guys do the same. Listen, guys, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. You're going to send it, don't bend it, keep your shiny side up. And with that, guys, we are going to wrap it up. Roy, thanks again. I appreciate the contribution, brother. It really does mean a ton. Love each and every one of you guys. Would not do this without you. And we will see y'all on the next one. And that's a wrap, guys. Thanks again. Adios.